Hello, everybody. My name is Tim. I'm the Director of Hospitality and Sales at Presqu'ile Winery in Santa Barbara County, specifically Santa Maria Valley. We're very excited to share our wines with you today and also introduce you to a little taste of Santa Maria. I'd like to introduce to Matt Murphy, our founder and president of Presqu'ile Winery, to give us a little bit of history, a little bit of tour, and a little bit of flavor of what we do up here.
Great. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, Matt, take it away.
We'll share a little screen action with you guys here. We'll start with a little flyover of the grounds here at Presqu'ile. We're in Santa Maria Valley, which is northern Santa Barbara County. My family and I built Presqu'ile beginning in 2007. Purchased 200 acres here, which was a gladiolus farm, actually, not vineyards, not planted to vines at all. And over the next few years, developed the vineyards, designed and built the tasting room, winery, and all the facilities that you see here in the video. So it's been a really fun project, and one that was actually a long time in the works. But it's great to be in this with my family and to be able to share our passion for Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and everything else that Santa Maria Valley has to offer here. So this is a little flyover of the Chardonnay on both sides right there, just in case you were curious. To get into the geography, relatively unique geography of Santa Barbara County, I'll show you a Google Earth Maps here. This is where Presqu'ile is located. Northern Santa Barbara County, as I mentioned, we're 12 miles from the coast. And that location, the proximity to the coast and the valley is running transverse, meaning east and west, rather than the typical north and south that you see in California, allows cool air from the ocean to moderate our temperatures during the growing season and keep everything nice and cold relatively. And that maintains acidity and balance in the fruit. And so at Presqu'ile, we're all about balance, which means appropriate ripeness, appropriate sugar levels, which lead to nice alcohol, not hot, or overly alcohol, and bright acidity. I think those are the keys for our wines. And then, the winemaking we'll talk about a little bit more when we get into the wines. I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with where Santa Barbara County is in California. Whoops. There we go. I'm going to try to zoom out here. Anyway, we're can't figure that out right now. Sorry, technical peasant here. We're about 5 hours south of San Francisco, and 5 hours north of you guys there in San Diego. So close enough for you guys to come visit. I guess that's what I'm getting at here. So that's what's unique about this area. We have 72 acres of vineyard planted at Presqu'ile, mostly Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, a little bit of Syrah, some Sauvignon Blanc, Aligoté, and Gamay. In addition to the vineyards that we have here at Presqu'ile, we source from local and regional vineyards to complement everything that we do here on the estate. And we're going to try one of those wines today, the Bien Nacido Chardonnay. So why don't we jump right into that?
Yeah. So Matt, just curiosity, because you mentioned the terroir and what makes this place unique. It's great. We're 5 hours from Napa Valley, and we're this far south, but you think, as you go south, you get warmer and warmer and warmer, which is actually not the case, right? Because our proximity to the ocean. And, that's what makes this whole area so unique, at least that I find from tasting these wines, is that their freshness and their lightness and the great acidity, just because our proximity to this beautiful ocean, and we get these ocean breezes that are coming in and just moderate everything so nicely. It's a very dynamic area.
Yeah, totally. We have unique soils, a unique climate, unique geography. We benefit from all of that. Mm-hmm. And there's obviously micro differences depending on where you are in these valleys. There's a lot of geologic action that's happened in California. Sure. From faults and erosion and, all kinds of mechanical things that, expose soil types. So on the south side of the valley where we are, where the dot on the map is, it's essentially beach sand. So you can see there are dunes out there to the west of Santa Maria.
Right here. Yeah. All big dunes.
Right.
Where didn't they film some of the movie, The Ten Commandments? Which I understand.
They did. Yeah.
They did. I think the Bible is actually buried over here. or the 10 Commandments are. I think
That's news to
in
me.
the movie, they actually, when they filmed it there in the dunes.
That sounds like a team building exercise for the tasting room staff.
Well,
Let's go find them.
Let's send them out there with some shovels.
But the south side of the valley here is essentially dunal deposition. It's two types of sand, and it's virtually all sand. There's very little other material in the soil, and so that leads to very high-toned, elegant, less like strong, I guess, for lack of a better word right now, wines.
I feel like everything on this side is very nuanced.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, elegance, nuance. I think those are good keywords for these wines. Biennacido Vineyard is about 5 miles from here, where the cursor is now, and drastically different soil types over there. So this is all clay-heavy soil. There's some limestone. And so when I think about the differences between sand and clay, which are really the two typical kind of like major soil types that we see, sand is light, so it leads to a lighter wine, at least, and more, aromatic and perfumed. Clay is heavy, and it leads to wines that have more structure and power.
Yeah.
And so anyway, what we have here is the 2018.
Show me the bottle.
Yeah, I'll show this to you guys again here. Biennacido Chardonnay. So this is 100% Biennacido Vineyard. And I think because the prevailing winds kind of come from the northwest, which is like the top left corner of your screen there, Biennacido is a little bit more sheltered. There's a canyon that I don't know if you can see right here, where most of the Chardonnay is planted. Yeah, and that's where kind of a lot of like the really high quality fruit from Biennacido comes from, in my opinion. So it's sheltered from the prevailing wind. It's a little bit further away from the ocean than Presqu'ile, so it's just a skosh warmer, I guess. And I think that shows in the wines. We will not have Presqu'ile Chardonnay today on this tasting, but if you guys get the chance, I encourage you to try these two wines together, because there's pretty distinct differences, even though they're grown so close to each other. But anyway, so this wine carries a little more power, I think, than our Chardonnay does. It's a little warmer. That comes through in a little bit more ripeness, but all within, reasonable realm.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this wine is, well, first, arguably, I mean, we maybe should say this as well. It's Biennacido. I think there's two vineyards that put this whole Santa Barbara County area on the map in terms of high quality grapes.
Yeah.
They'd probably be Sanford and Benedict, which is in the Santa Rita Hills, which is, just a couple miles from here, but remarkably different wines produced there. Then Biennacido here as well. And yeah, these wines tend to have power to them. I think they pick up like classic Santa Maria quality to them, but they do that in like a really powerful kind of like package when you taste this thing. I mean, like, I think it stays true to what we try to do with wines of finesse, good acid to them, great freshness to them, but you can taste it. I mean, this is like a pocket of Chardonnay that just goes boom.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah. Biennacido is, I think it's the oldest vineyard in Santa Maria, at least in terms of like vine age. It was planted in 1973. First vineyards in Santa Maria were planted in 69, like in what we call the modern era of Santa Maria Valley.
Yeah.
The Padres had a bunch of mission grapes planted here in the 17 and 1800s, but those are long gone.
Yeah.
At this point. But yeah, Biennacido and then the Uriel Nielsen vineyard were kind of like the first ones that went in.
And the Julia's vineyard as well.
Julia's vineyard. So this is Santa Maria Valley history in a glass right here, and a really great representation of what this area has to offer.
Yeah. One of the things that, a lot of the guests that come up and taste our wine, and one of the first things they say is like, I don't like Chardonnay. And you say, well, let's taste this. And they're like, oh, wait, this is a really good white wine. And I think that is the reason why that is, because a lot of the American palate is tuned really to a very specific type of Chardonnay, I would find. And it's really unique to taste these wines. And I say this across for a lot of the producers down here in this valley, is that it's a complete different representation of the grape varietal. It's fun, it's tasty, really good food pairing as well. I know you guys will be tasting a little quiche with a little omelet too, with a little asparagus, little spring thing going on, which is great with this wine because it's got that zip, or some seafood like Chiappino stew. Like zippy.
Yes, please.
Yeah, right? I'm hungry. And it's even after lunch. Okay, great.
The winemaking on this wine really quick. Just you know, a lot of people expect a lot of oakiness in Chardonnay, and that's kind of against everything that we believe in when it comes to our wines. We don't want to, you know, going back to the balance comment, we don't want anything to be out of whack. And so we found that in our experience making wines from Santa Maria Valley, that they tend to show a lot of oak. If you put a lot of oak on them, they won't, you know, integrate the oak as well. So we don't use really any new wood on the wines. Actually, none of the wines that we have here today have new oak on them. So we won't talk about that at all. But just as a heads up. And then most of the fermentations are native, meaning we don't inoculate. The native yeasts that are just ambient in the vineyards complete the fermentations. And then the Chardonnay is aged in oak for neutral oak, meaning it's been used several times and imparts no oak flavor, for about 8 months. And then it's racked into stainless steel to preserve freshness and just kind of stop the aging process a little bit, for another 6 months or so. I think in 2018, it was about 6 more months.
Yeah.
So anyway, Chardonnay in a nutshell.
Yeah. And to go back to your oak comment as well, I mean, I think our view of oak in the winery is like salt when cooking, right? Salt brings a ton of, you know, flavor, and it just helps so much with cooking, you know, depending on what you're doing with it. But you don't want to taste it at the end of the day.
No.
Right? It's the same thing with oak. You know, it helps to slowly age the wine and create breath in it. But you don't really want to taste a ton of it.
Right.
You know? So I think that's our view as well.
Exactly.
With it as well.
Next up is the Santa Barbara County Pinot Noir.
Right there, 2020.
So our Santa Barbara County wines allow us to source grapes from outside of our immediate area, but still within kind of like what we consider our home turf of Santa Barbara County. So there's a number of other places in this county that grow Pinot Noir well. Los Alamos is about 15 minutes to the south of us. I don't, do you want to keep the map up still, or should we show them where Los Alamos is?
Yeah.
While Tim flies us down a little south here. So there's Los Alamos, and there are
about 15 minutes, by the way, driving time.
Yeah, down the 101. And then back in the kind of like hinterland a little bit off of the 101, there's other vineyards as well. And so we have, you know, some flexibility in where we source grapes from. We always want to work with who we consider to be some of the better growers of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, because at the end of the day, if you start with bad fruit, you're never going to make great wine. And so we feel that it's very important to be selective with the vineyards that we source the fruit from, and that ultimately makes or breaks what you're having right now. So this is some Presqu'ile, a small amount, but mostly vineyards from down around Los Alamos. And this is just supposed to be a screaming good value and really good Pinot Noir. So not site specific, kind of the best of everything Santa Barbara County has to offer. But really bright, lifted, high-toned Pinot Noir. Nothing unctuous about it.
No.
It's just really delicious. And I mean, I think when it comes to pairing wines to food, the most important thing is the acidity, right?
Yep.
So acidity, you know, kind of balances out any of the heaviness in a dish. And I mean, how do you look at pairing wine and food?
Well, I always look at like, well, I want two components in my wine. If it's specifically red, right? I want tannin, I want acid, right? Acid cuts fat on the palate and tannin cuts protein on the palate, right? So depending on the dish, I'm going to try to pair a wine that I know that's going to be either, you know, where does that fit in that spectrum? Pinot Noir should have a little good, some good tannin, some good acidity to it, right? So it's a beautiful pairing wine. And I don't want wines necessarily to be front and center when I'm doing a pairing as well. I want them to clean my palate. So I want another bite.
Yeah.
I think that's the magical key to pairing, at least for me, because if I'm having a big flavorful dish and a big flavorful wine, I start to get palate fatigue, right? I want something that's I want that next bite. I want that next sip. So, yeah. I mean, I love this Pinot Noir too, because, you know, as you said, it's kind of like our representation of what Santa Barbara is. And it's like, it's great. It's got that red fruit to it, and it's got that little bit of cola thing and a little bit of that Santa Maria spice to it as well that we find up here. But yeah, it's just delicious.
We get a lot of savory character from the Pinot Noir from our part of the world. That's what drew me to this area initially.
Yeah.
I worked at Aubin Clement with Jim Clendon
Legendary.
for a while, back on
Mhm.
Biennacito, and at one other winery on Biennacito, and we were pulling Pinot Noir and Chardonnay from all over the state, and it was a great opportunity to taste a bunch of different examples of Pinot made by one guy. So the constant was the winemaker, and you're really tasting the interpretations of the vineyards like that. And I was always, drawn and gravitated towards the wines from Santa Maria because of that savoriness and the spiciness. So, that was one big reason why we ended up starting Presqu'ile in Santa Maria Valley, because of that.
Yeah. No, it's tasty. It's so fun.
Next, last but not least.
And I tell you what, like a little duck, I think, which is coming with the menu as well. A little crispy duck. Oh, it's going to be fantastic with this,
So last we have our estate Syrah. I love cool climate Syrah. So here's the label. And our labels have our friend Jean Hugo from South Africa. Our winemaker is from South Africa, and Jean grew up with Dieter. And she's a really talented artist. And her and her husband ended up staying here in Santa Barbara County for about a year. Dion worked with us at the winery, and John designed our labels. So I think she did a great job.
Yeah.
Kind of a cool representation of the vineyard map there on the label. So you can see everything we have planted at Presqu'ile.
So Matt, before you get into the Syrah, just because we just had this happen the other day, is I sat down with all the staff and we put out 8 different Syrahs from California. And we try to imagine in our mind, okay, what does Syrah from California taste like? Or how does a consumer, when they go to a store, say, okay, that's California Syrah, what am I going to get? Like, I feel like Syrah in California is like all over the bat. It's big, it's jammy, it's ripe. You got some hipsters that are picking it underripe, where it's just like super green and aggressive. Like, what is true Syrah, do you think, in California? And like, what are we doing here? Because when I smell this thing, I'm like, this smells like the Rhone Valley to me. Northern Rhone. This is like Cornas to me.
I think that there's an acceptable window of when grapes should be picked, right? And if you're picking within that window and you planted the vineyard in the right place, and you're going to end up with, a really good example of what that varietal has to offer. And we can't pick this right. We're so cold here in Santa Maria that we're picking this in late October.
Yeah.
And the vines are just throwing their hands up.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no further ripening. This will not be an overripe wine. So, but I'm with you. I mean, I started out by saying that I love wines from the Northern Rhone. I love kind of like that savory, black olive, bright acidity, kind of meaty a little bit.
They're almost like wines of power.
Yeah.
But there's a finesse to them as well. To go back to that food pairing thing I was talking about earlier, they still have the finesse that it's not going to override a lot of food pairings.
You'll always have power with Syrah because of the tannin, right? Syrah has a thicker skin than Pinot Noir does. And the thickness of the skin, determines how much tannin you end up with in the wine, because that's where most of the tannin that's extracted comes from. And so, you'll always have that power there. So actually, it's a good point on the winemaking here too, because of the tannic structure of the Syrah. It needs to age in barrel a little bit longer than lighter or less tannic red wines would, at least in our opinion. And so this is aged for 2 years versus like the 14 months or 16 months or so that the Pinot Noirs get and Chard gets.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool climate.
Yeah.
Savory, spicy, all of the things that we talked about with Pinot Noir that I think are so appealing apply to Syrah as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gorgeous wine for sure.
And this has been a sleeper for us. We planted this because at Dieter and my previous job, we worked a lot with Syrah from Biennacito, and there are some absolutely epic blocks of Syrah there. And so that inspired us to plant, what we planted here to some degree. And
taking everybody to the Syrah vineyard.
Here we go. But it's been great. I think, it's definitely one of the most compelling wines that we make here at Presqu'ile.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that we're planting more of it, right? anyways, we're taking a drive up our vineyard, but anyways, we're getting back up into Syrah territory. But just to give you guys a kind of an overview, this is our vineyard in the springtime. When this was 2015, when everything was looking very young and very fresh back then. Everything was planted in 2000, and well, the original vineyard was 2009 when you first come on property.
08 and 09.
Yep. But yeah, but super savory, man. This is, you know, like I said, good pairing.
Mm-hmm.
You guys were gonna do a little usobuco, which I mean, braised meat. How can you go wrong?
That'd be
A little
great.
gargonzola in there too. I always like that little gargonzola because I always get that like that kick, that little tang to it, quality to it. I think it would go great with something like this.
The acidity of this will cut through that fat of the Ossobuco super well.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet, man. That's Presqu'ile in I guess a nutshell.
Yeah.
You know,
In a grape skin.
in a grape. Wow. Well put. You know.
I'm so guilty of dad jokes. It's like.
Well, you are a dad,
Yeah.
so you need to embrace these things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, great, everybody. Well, I hope you enjoy your dinner. I hope you enjoy these wines. I hope you have the opportunity to come visit us anytime up here at Presqu'ile. I know that Chris is putting together some tours in May, and we're going to be a stop on one of them. So hopefully you'll join us and be able to come up here to visit us up here in Santa Maria. So cheers. Asante.
Yeah.
Buon appetito.
Thanks for tuning in.
All righty, everybody.